Next in our tour of the Dreamweaver interface, we have the Properties Inspector, which is this panel down here at the bottom. And in my opinion, and many other people's opinions, this is probably the most important panel to have open at all times when you're designing your pages. The Properties Inspector is a contextual panel, meaning that its contents change depending on what element you have selected on your web page. For example, because I'm looking at a blank page right now with this cursor flashing up here, Dreamweaver assumes that I'm going to be working with text. Therefore, the Properties Inspector is displaying text properties like the font, the size, the style, bold, italicized, things like that. But if I come up here to my insert bar and insert a table, I'll just click on OK here to just put a default table in here. With the table selected, I now see table properties like rows, columns, cell pads, cell space, border, width, and height, things like that. Now don't worry if that doesn't mean anything to you right now. We'll be looking at tables a little bit later. But for now, I just want to get across that the Properties Inspector changes based on what you have selected on your page. And again, the Property Inspector is definitely a panel that you want to keep open all the time because unlike, say, the insert bar up here, where you can find a lot of the same things under the insert menu, the properties settings that appear in the Properties Inspector don't appear anywhere else in Dreamweaver. Or at least many of them do not. So if the panel is closed, you won't be able to make necessary changes. You also want to make sure that the panel is expanded the whole way by making sure this triangle down here is pointed up. If I click that, notice that it collapses on itself and it's a shorter panel now. So you want to make sure you see that whole thing. The Property Inspector is expanded by default, but if you or someone else accidentally collapses it at some point, you might miss certain property settings. In fact, you will miss certain property settings unless you open it back up again. So definitely keep that open unless you're really hurting for screen real estate. And finally, like other panels, the Properties Inspector can be opened and closed from the Window menu by choosing Window Properties or hitting Control F3 or Command F3 if you're on the Mac.